To understand the present moment, the Baha'i writings offer us a powerful analogy. Humanity is going through its collective adolescence. After millennia of infancy and childhood, we now find ourselves in the culminating stage of a millennial process, leading us to the threshold of maturity, which will witness the unification of the human race. This transition, described as unprecedented, requires that practices and conventions long accepted cherished attitudes and habits be left behind to give way for a new phase of collective development. The modern era of transition in which we find ourselves has its origin in the decline of the medieval order, characterized by agrarian structures, absolute monarchies, and hierarchical religious authorities. The convulsions of the so-called long 19th century, approximately 1770 to 1920, definitively eroded the foundations of that millennial order. Industrial manufacturing undermined the agrarian economic base, while popular revolutions from the American Revolution and the French Revolution to the Springtime of Nations in 1848, which involved more than 50 countries, transformed entire societies and overthrew centuries-old empires. New transportation and communication technologies shattered the traditional notion of local autonomy, interconnecting the planet at a dizzying pace. New ideologies emerged: liberalism, capitalism, socialism, nationalism, communism, among others, which, while attempting to answer the fundamental question of how to structure a more just society, contained limited assumptions that in many cases ended up generating greater suffering and divisions, thus creating recurring cycles of hope and disillusionment. The three destructive forces of the 20th century. The 20th century witnessed the emergence of three ideological forces that, although each separately has exerted a profound impact on contemporary society, their convergence has been devastating for the social and moral fabric of humanity. The first force is extreme individualism, popularized through the works of psychologists such as Sigmund Freud, who reduced human motivation to basic impulses, and Abraham Maslow, with his hierarchy of needs centered on personal self-actualization. This current found its most radical philosophical expression in thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre, who proclaimed absolute individual freedom as the foundation of existence, and Ayn Rand, who openly defended rational selfishness as the highest human virtue. This individualism has fostered a culture where collective responsibility has been diluted, where the self has become the absolute center of existence, and where common welfare has been subordinated to the unbridled pursuit of personal satisfaction. The second force is rampant materialism, the driving engine behind the transformation of a market economy into a market society. In this new reality, virtually every aspect of human life is reduced to monetary transactions, including the most fundamental human relationships such as friendship, education, health, justice, and even human dignity itself. This materialism has converted human beings into mere consumers and has reduced the value of people to their capacity to produce and acquire material goods, thus eroding authentic social bonds and community solidarity. The third force, perhaps the most insidious, is the moral decadence and relativism that has permeated all strata of society. This relativism, which finds its roots in postmodern thought, has promoted the idea that there are no absolute truths or universal moral principles, but that everything depends on context, culture, or individual perspective. This current has led to the erosion of values and the loss of common ethical references. The distinction between good and evil has become blurred, and concepts such as virtue, honor, integrity, and moral responsibility have been relativized to the point of losing their practical meaning. Moral relativism has generated a crisis of moral authority, resulting in a fragmented society where each individual constructs their own value system, frequently based on personal convenience rather than solid ethical principles. The devastating convergence. The combination of these three forces has created a scenario in which radical individualism provides the ideological justification, rampant materialism offers the practical means, and moral relativism removes the ethical obstacles to social disintegration. The result is a society where social cohesion has been weakened, mutual trust diminished, and collective purpose lost. This convergence has produced generations struggling to find meaning and purpose beyond immediate gratification, contributing to mental health crises, family breakdown, political polarization, and a deep distrust in social institutions. Identity crisis. It is in this context of adolescent turbulence and ideological frustration that a profound identity crisis also manifests itself, aggravating the situation. Humanity struggles to define itself and determine its place in a radically transformed world. In a letter dated January 19, 2019, the Universal House of Justice, the supreme body of Baha'i institutions writes, "Humanity is beset by an identity crisis as diverse peoples and groups struggle to define themselves, their place in the world, and how to act. Without a vision of shared identity and common purpose, they fall prey to competing ideologies and power struggles. Countless variations of us and them define increasingly narrow and opposing group identities. Over time, this fragmentation into divergent interests has weakened social cohesion. Paradoxically, while global interdependence is becoming increasingly evident, categories of identity such as us and them multiply, becoming narrower and more antagonistic, thereby eroding the foundations of social cohesion. The Baha'i perspective, unity in diversity. From the Baha'i perspective, the solution to contemporary crises lies in the genuine and profound recognition of the fundamental unity of humanity. This understanding is rooted in a common, universal identity, the reality that all human beings share the same essential spiritual nature, a soul that transcends categories of gender, race, nationality, or any other artificial division. This vision radically differs from prevailing conceptions in current discourse, for it does not propose the elimination of differences or the homogenization of humanity. On the contrary, it maintains that an authentic universal identity does not erase human diversity, but rather protects it, celebrates it, and enhances it as a natural expression of the richness inherent in the human condition. Baha'i unity is not uniformity. It is more like a garden where beauty arises precisely from the variety of flowers, each contributing its unique color, fragrance, and form to the harmonious whole. In this way, cultural, ethnic, and individual differences become sources of mutual enrichment and collective learning rather than causes of division and conflict. This perspective offers a conceptual framework that transcends both extreme individualism and oppressive collectivism, proposing instead a synthesis in which personal fulfillment and collective well-being complement and reinforce one another, grounded in the recognition of our common spiritual humanity. World unity constitutes the goal toward which a beleaguered humanity strives. Baha'u'lláh proclaims, "The well-being of mankind, its peace and its security are unattainable unless and until its unity is firmly established." The Baha'i faith is apolitical, supranational, and nonpartisan, subordinating every particular interest to the supreme interests of humanity. In his own words, Baha'u'lláh declares, "It is not for him to pride himself who loveth his own country, but rather for him who loveth the whole world. The earth is but one country, and mankind its citizens." In the Hidden Words, a work of extraordinary beauty and profound depth, Baha'u'lláh reveals an ethical and spiritual code designed for the development of the human soul and the attainment of true happiness, both individually and collectively. In the following passages, Baha'u'lláh elucidates the meaning of this new identity of unity. "Since we have created you all from one same substance, it is incumbent on you to be even as one soul, to walk with the same feet, eat with the same mouth, and dwell in the same land, that from your inmost being, by your deeds and actions, the signs of oneness and the essence of detachment may be made manifest." O friends, quench ye the lamp of error, and kindle within your hearts the everlasting flame of divine guidance. For ere long the assayers of mankind, in the holy presence of the Adored One, will accept naught but absolute virtue and deeds of stainless purity.